fears are that we're going to be seeing more dead mothers and fathers and children.
Cyclists are warning that lives are at stake with the province poised to tear up bike lanes in Toronto. Good afternoon. The cyclists converged on Queen's Park in a protest this morning.
Cyclists are concerned the bike lane demolition could begin as soon as this week. CTV Sean Leithong is covering this story and joins us now with more. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Natalie, just last week there was a court case where the cyclists had been hoping that the courts would actually stop the Ford government from tearing out bike lanes on Yonge Street, University and Bloor, but that was effectively lost. Now, it is going to a higher court, but at this time, cyclists are gathering today, a few dozen of them, just to express their fears on what may happen, because we know that the Ford government had said that they would not make any movements until the court case heard, and the soonest that they said would be on March 20th that they would possibly rip out these bike lanes. Now, many people who were here today saying that they were fearful that when the bike lanes go out, it will become dangerous. They pointed to reports saying that that perhaps businesses could be hurt, that there could be more people hurt, and that it would hurt the environment to have more cars on the road. Now, Mayor Olivia Chow is saying she's hoping that there could be some sort of middle ground between the cyclists and the province. But first, here's one organizer who talked about what their fears are.
In the middle of a trade war, Doug Ford is spending $50 million to make traffic worse, kill cyclists, harm our environment, and harm local businesses.
The win-win situation, for example, what we can do is find ways to bring back a car lane in some instance and still maintain the bike lane.
Now, there's been no confirmation when the city will, or when the province will actually move to remove the bike lanes, but the group is fearful that it could happen as soon as this week. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leithong. Natalie, Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Still to come, elementary teachers say children with autism are not getting the supports they need due to a lack of funding from the province. One mother is speaking out today. We'll have that story just ahead.
And we have more news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. Another day with lots of sunshine, and the temperatures are still rising. Comfortable spring temperatures, even though spring is still a couple of days away. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Lindsay.
And Nathan, you and I were just talking about how that sunshine is invigorating out there. Temperature-wise, we still have a little ways to go before we reach our forecast daytime high, but it's already a double-digit day in Windsor, Ontario at 10 degrees. 2 degrees right now in Kingston, Ontario, so a little bit cooler the further east you are. 5 degrees this hour in Toronto, 9 in the Niagara area. We've got some breezy winds that are coming from the south today, so that's ushering in a bit more of a milder air mass. Nothing to show you here on the satellite and radar. A little bit of cloud creeping its way over Lake Huron. It's going to be a beautiful afternoon. A terrific Tuesday, if you will. 12 is our forecast daytime high, and we will be even milder tomorrow. We're going to take you through the forecast for the week ahead coming up. For now, though, Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay. Now to the renewed calls for supports for children with autism in schools.
The Elementary Teachers Federation is speaking out today. CTV's Janice Golding is covering this story and joins us live with the details. Janice.
Hi, Natalie. This is not just relation to children with autism, but all children with special needs. Now, the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario has released a damning new report called Broken Promises or Promises Unfulfilled, which points out an alarming funding gap for special education. Now, ETFO says that the Doug Ford government has a record of inaction and chronic neglect of special education, which has led to limited resources and to other systemic barriers. And ETFO says that has left Ontario's most vulnerable students without the supports they need. The report identifies challenges like a lack of early intervention, barriers to accessing programs, increasing school violence due to unmet student needs, and limited resources and support services. ETFO is calling on 3 quick fixes to improve the funding formula. First, by indexing special education funding to inflation. Secondly, it says an assessment backlog needs to be addressed, meaning 59% of kids receiving special education support have not been assessed by an identification, placement, and review committee. And third, that the statistical funding model be improved upon, given much of special education funding is using census data from almost 20 years ago.
The right to an education that enables every child to reach their full potential is not just a promise, it is the law. But this government has failed to uphold the law, systemically failing students educators, education workers, and families.
The complex needs of students continues to increase while the resources available to support them well are almost non-existent. As a teacher, I am far too familiar with what it's like to evacuate a class due to physical and/or emotional violence. And so are students.
And that's hard for any parent, right? To have to now pick up the pieces for whatever fell apart during the school day, but also then to potentially have to answer for why their child is having behavioral issues at school, or maybe why their child is sad or depressed or anxious or whatever they're feeling because they don't want to go back to school.
With the special education funding in particular, what we do here is to fund based on estimates. Estimates that sometimes use 2006 data, whereas 2016 data is available, 2021 data is available.
In all, the report makes 27 recommendations, including increasing funding, additional support staff, reduced classroom sizes, and ongoing and improved professional training for staff. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Canada's new Prime Minister is in Nunavut this afternoon to reassert our sovereignty in the Arctic. It's the final stop on a very busy 2 days for Mark Carney. He met with the leaders of France and the UK Monday during his first official foreign trip. It happened amid American threats to our economy and sovereignty. The PM said comprehensive bilateral talks with the United States can't happen unless U.S. President Donald Trump stops making comments about wanting to make Canada the 51st state. Carney also discussed Russia's war in Ukraine with his host yesterday, as well as closer trade and security ties with Europe.
The focus is on security, deepening security partnerships with France, with the United Kingdom. Those discussions are necessarily sensitive. They're revealed in the full course of time. I'm encouraged by the progress that's been made. And it also includes economic opportunities with respect to, for example, artificial intelligence, critical minerals, broadening out existing trade relationships that are functioning quite well.
Today in Iqaluit, Carney's expected to make an announcement on strengthening security in the north. He will also meet with Nunavut's premier and members of the Canadian Rangers who patrol the Arctic. Carney will be joined this afternoon by Canada's defense minister and the chief of the defense staff.
Palestinian health authorities say Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 400 people in the Gaza Strip, shattering a fragile ceasefire.
The strikes hit houses and tent encampments from the north to the south of the territory. Witnesses reported that Israeli tanks shelled from across the border. Medics say the sudden onslaught overwhelmed hospitals already reeling from weeks of an aid blockade. Israel's prime minister said he ordered the strikes because Hamas rejected proposals to secure a ceasefire extension and will act against the group with increasing military strength. Hamas is accusing the Israelis of breaching the truce by jeopardizing efforts to negotiate a permanent deal. The United Nations says the return to hostilities in Gaza must cease, and humanitarian aid and essential supplies have to be allowed to enter the territory.
We are horrified by last night's Israeli airstrikes and shelling in Gaza, which killed hundreds, according to the Ministry of Health in the Strip. This will add tragedy onto the tragedy. The last 18 months of violence have made abundantly clear that there is no military path out of this crisis. The only way forward is a political settlement in line with international law.
Protests have been continuing in Israel as Hamas still holds 59 of the approximately 250 hostages seized in its attack on October 7th. So far, Hamas has not made any threat of retaliation following the news of attacks by Israel on Gaza.
To the latest now, in an effort to end Russia's war in Ukraine, a high-stakes phone call is underway right now as part of an attempt to get Russia to accept a ceasefire deal. The White House says U.S. President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart have so far discussed moves to end the conflict. Trump hopes to convince Vladimir Putin to accept an American-proposed 30-day truce and move towards a permanent halt to the war. A White House official says the two leaders have been on the phone since 10 a.m. and the call is going well.
A tragic update in a devastating Oshawa house fire last week.
A 12-year-old girl has now died following the blaze that also killed her mother and her sister. Close friends have identified members of the Breska family. 12-year-old Sigalit died in hospital yesterday. Her mother, Vivian, and 9-year-old sister, Eilette, died last week. Her father, 56-year-old Joseph, was also hurt in the fire, but is expected to survive. Flames broke out at the home on McGregor Street last Wednesday morning. Ontario's fire marshal is continuing to investigate the cause, but says it does not believe that it was arson.
To Hamilton now, where one person is dead following a fire. Now, it broke out early yesterday morning. Crews were called to a townhouse complex on Main Street West near Filman Road. They found heavy flames. Now, one person was rescued from the second floor and treated by Hamilton paramedics. They were later pronounced dead at the scene. No one else was hurt, and so far there's been no word on a possible cause.
Also in Hamilton, police conducted a controlled detonation after finding an explosive device at a downtown apartment building. That sound was heard just after 6 last night at 181 Jackson Street West. Officers say they were called there yesterday afternoon and found the explosive in a storage locker in the basement. No injuries were reported.
Emergency crews in Oakville battled a fire at a car dealership. At around 3:30 this morning, they were called to Key Auto on Wycroft Road near 3rd Line in the 403. When they arrived, they found flames and heavy smoke pouring from the building. The cause and origin of the fire are under investigation, but it has now been deemed suspicious. No injuries were reported, and the fire is now out. And in Burlington, a dog has been pulled from a home after a fire. That would happen on Bunton Crescent, just off Appleby Line. The dog was pulled from the home and was given oxygen. The cause of the fire is under investigation.
Mississauga's mayor is speaking out following the removal of U.S. flags from many public spaces over the weekend. Mayor Carolyn Parrish announced all American flags would be removed from arenas in the city, as well as from specific locations along the lakeshore, like Credit Village Marina and Lakefront Promenade Marina. Yesterday, Parrish released another statement, which reads in part, quote, "I want to be clear that this decision is a response to resident feedback, not a criticism or unwelcoming message to the American people. This decision is not intended to exclude anyone, but rather to reflect the pride and unity we feel as Canadians. This symbolic gesture reflects the desire of our residents to proudly display Canadian pride during these difficult times." The city also ordered oversized Canadian flags to be flown at City Hall.
Well, a man's been charged with advocating genocide and more than 24 other offenses in a hate crime investigation targeting the Jewish community. 32-year-old Amir Arvai Azar of Toronto is facing a total of 29 criminal charges. Toronto police say the charges of advocating genocide and the willful promotion of hatred are rarely laid in Canada, but were included in consultation with the Ministry of the Attorney General. All of the incidents are alleged to have occurred between April 26, 2024 and January of this year. Police say because of a court-ordered publication ban, no further details can be provided. The accused has been released following a bail hearing with several conditions imposed. Well, the Trump administration is defending its latest controversial move, deporting hundreds of alleged gang members from U.S. soil.
And not even a court order could stop the White House from moving ahead. Here is CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon on how the president is testing the boundaries of his power.
The video shared by El Salvador's president looks like a Hollywood movie. More than 200 alleged Venezuelan gang members paraded around, shackled, their heads shaved. The U.S. paid El Salvador $6 million to imprison them. More than half were deported under a rare wartime law, the Alien Enemies Act, that Trump invoked for the first time since the Second World War, giving him sweeping powers.
They invaded our country, so this isn't, in that sense, this is war. I can tell you this, these were bad people. That was a bad group of, as I say, hombres.
A federal judge blocked the move, ordering the planes to turn around. That didn't happen. The administration denies it defied the judge's order, saying the planes were already out of U.S. airspace.
The president used his authority under the Alien Enemies Act to deport foreign terrorists. Tren de Aragua is now a designated foreign terrorist organization.
It's all part of an escalating crackdown on illegal immigration as promised by Donald Trump and his new border czar.
We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
Civil liberties groups accuse the White House of abusing wartime powers when the U.S. isn't even at war.
I do think we are slipping closer and closer to a constitutional crisis. Criticizing federal judges, saying they don't have authority. I think we're on dangerous ground here in the United States.
The judge scolded Trump's Justice Department, demanding to know why his orders were ignored as Trump continues to push the boundaries of his presidential powers. Joy Malvin, CTV News, Washington.
Efforts to keep streetcars on track and cars out of the way on a stretch of King Street downtown have ramped up.
But are they working? CTV's Beth McDonnell reports on what the latest numbers signal.
At University and King, there are signs showing drivers they aren't allowed to go through the intersection. But our cameras caught several vehicles disobeying those signs and going through anyway, in both directions. Even when traffic agents are there, some drivers slip through.
If cars are not obeying the rules and they're going straight through when they should not be, then they definitely deserve to be ticketed.
For nearly 6 years, King between Jarvis and Bathurst has been a permanent priority transit corridor. Vehicles are restricted to give streetcars the right of way and keep riders moving, but it doesn't always work as it's supposed to.
Sometimes you see multiple streetcars, like 3 or 4 in one time. At the rush hour, a lot of people waiting for one streetcar.
In 2023, a University of Toronto report found less than 1% of drivers on the corridor were ticketed for traffic violations. Since Mayor Olivia Chow took office, more traffic agents have been deployed to downtown streets to keep intersections clear. Now she's also seeking approval for agents to hand out tickets in addition to police and to use automated enforcement cameras.
To use the police camera to take a photo, let's say someone is blocking the box, and then charge them because you can tell what are the licenses.
New numbers from Toronto Police on King show disobey sign tickets increasing over the past year, from nearly 300 over 6 months to nearly 600 over 6 months. Blocking the box numbers appear low, but increased during the same period, from 14 to 32. In all 12 months on King, police issued more than 7,000 parking violations. Police say officers patrol King West regularly, but can't give an exact number of hours they're doing enforcement. Streetcar riders we spoke with are enthusiastic about using cameras to ticket.
I think it's a great idea. Keep the city safer and, less problems.
I think it's a good thing.
The mayor says the King streetcar is moving 3 times faster because of traffic agents. City data shows the average travel times through the King corridor ranges between 19 and 21 minutes. In 2023, it could take more than an hour. The city says the process to bring in automated enforcement could take up to 2 years. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
A full liquidation of Canada's oldest company could begin as soon as today if court approves it. For more on this, we're joined by CTV's Scott Hurst. So, Scott, what is the situation when it comes to the Bay liquidating its stores? Is there a ruling yet?
Good afternoon, Nathan. A full liquidation could be approved at any moment. A lot of ground was covered in court on Monday, and the judge has given all parties much of the day today to continue working on some of these significant outstanding issues that need to be figured out before a ruling is ultimately made. But court documents paint a bleak picture for the centuries-old company, owing close to $1 billion, with landlords and suppliers chasing them for cash. And so far, the Bay has not been able to convince anyone to help them keep the lights on and keep the doors open. Now, full liquidation would mean all 80 stores, including several Saks Fifth Avenue and off Fifth locations as well. Now, full liquidation is opposed by employees as it could lead to mass layoffs to the tune of more than 9,000 jobs being on the line. Here's more from a lawyer representing employees in court.
In a full liquidation, if all the stores are shut down and nothing gets acquired by another purchaser, then generally there's massive job loss, pension plan wind-ups. It's the shutdown of a company, very similar to what happened with Sears Canada, what happened with Eaton's, and a few others. So we're trying to avoid that as much as possible.
Now, Nathan, in a full liquidation, Ontario would be hit the hardest with 32 stores and more than half of its workforce located in this province alone.
You know, a lot of jobs on the line. What's the best case scenario for the Bay?
Well, the company is still looking for an 11th hour deal, even as it goes through this entire process. And it would basically look like this. It would allow the retailer to remove some of the stores from the mass sell-off if it can acquire enough financing, potentially saving some of the footprint, meaning it would be allowed to withdraw stores over the next several months from the liquidation, but shrinking the company to a much more manageable size. Now, the company has admitted it's been struggling to keep up with mounting costs and subdued consumer spending. Now, we've been speaking to a lot of customers over the last several days as this has become front and center in the news, and many have mentioned they've really seen a decline over the last many years, pointing to what appears to be a lack of investment in the in-store experience. And so ultimately there is a path for the Bay to stay open somewhat, but obviously at a much smaller and more manageable size, Nathan.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst with the latest on Hudson's Bay Company. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Now to Toronto City Hall, where a committee working to bring 6 World Cup games to Toronto is going hat in hand to City Hall.
The cost has climbed another $10 million. CTV's Rahim Ladani joins us live from City Hall with all of the details. Rahim.
Well, Natalie, I can tell you that the city's FIFA World Cup's executive subcommittee met this morning to explore an avenue it says will generate money through hosting the tournament. The catch is that the city needs to pony up nearly $11 million up front. The recommendation is for council to take $10.8 million from the city's special event reserve fund and use it to buy suites, lounges, and tickets for the World Cup. Then its partner, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, would sell those hospitality suites, and the city hopes it'll be at a significant premium. The city's FIFA executive director wouldn't tell me what percentage it expects its return on investment will be, but she's confident the city will make money from this and the reserve fund will be paid back in full and it will not impact the overall budget.
So the reserve fund will be paid back. It'll be replenished. This was really just an opportunity for us to have the funds to work with to pre-purchase. So our strategy will be to return all of the funds back to the reserve by Q1 2026. We're confident that this will be a revenue generating opportunity for us as a city. We're really confident about that. People are expressing great interest in being part of this event. You know, we have one of the smaller stadiums out of the 16 across the tournament, and so our inventory is quite a bit smaller than some of the other cities. So we have, fewer sort of opportunities to work with, but we're maximizing and leveraging those as best we can.
I also spoke with Councillor John Burnside, and he told me while he's on board with the city not leaving money on the table, what concerns him is that the schedule hasn't been released yet, and so he fears that the city's projected revenue may not be as lofty in reality if the marquee matchups don't come to Toronto. City Council will next debate this recommendation next week. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Rahim. Lindsay.
Well, thank you. And you know what? The countdown is on to spring. It's now less than 2 days away officially. We will welcome the new season at 5:01 a.m. Thursday morning. And then after that, I know we're going to be counting down to summer, if you can believe it. Only 94 days until that season arrives. Let's talk about spring, though. It's going to feel like it tomorrow, that's for sure. And then we're going to get into some spring showers, maybe some spring flurries as well. A detailed look at your weather forecast is coming up on the other side of this break. You're watching CTV News at noon. Beautiful day out there. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Well, we are now just 2 days away from the official start of spring, and we've got double-digit temperatures in store for us. It's actually going to feel like spring.
Yeah, that is the beauty of it. It feels like spring, plus we're getting lots of sunshine as well. It just adds to it.
I mean, we had mild temperatures over the weekend, so this isn't the first time we are experiencing daytime highs in the teens, but we had all that wet weather over the weekend. This time, we get to enjoy some sunshine, especially today. Tomorrow there could be a little more in the way of cloud, but nothing that's going to spoil your day by any means. We could get into a few spring showers, though, Wednesday night and into Thursday, just in time for the official arrival of the new season. Weather is brought to you by the Pressler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Today, there is no shortage of sunshine. We actually had a beautiful sunrise as well as we inch ever closer to that vernal equinox. Equal parts day and night coming right up. And, you know, it is feeling like the season, the spring season, daytime highs in the double digits, just about everywhere in southern Ontario. If not today, certainly for tomorrow. Here's the thing, though. There's a bit of a contrast happening between southern parts of Ontario and northern sections of our province. It still very much feels like winter, especially across the northwest, and there is snow in the forecast for some of our friends in that part of the province. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but no snow today for us. Instead, beautiful sunshine and an afternoon high of 12 degrees, well above seasonal. Normal temperature this time of year is around 5. We're going to be close to that overnight tonight for our low. 4 is what we're forecasting. A few clouds here and there and a very light easterly wind. Nothing really to speak of as far as any concerns. Tomorrow, let's talk about this. Daytime highs not only in the double digits, but the teens. 16 degrees for you in Guelph, maybe 17 in the Burlington area, 16 in Aurora. Again, well above seasonal. Normal daytime high this time of year is about 4. How does 15 sound to you in Uxbridge? Mix of sun and cloud in store as well. So we've already had one round of snow in through northern parts of Ontario. There is another on the way. A second area of low pressure is developing. This one is going to impact us here in the south, but not so much with snow. We are going to get a little bit of rain, showers at the very least, and then maybe a change over to some flurries. But first, let's talk about tomorrow. It is going to be milder than today in many areas, but we'll also see a little more in the way of cloud, especially in the morning. So there's 9 a.m. As we make our way into the afternoon, a lot of that cloud cover is going to break up. So we'll go ahead and call it a mix of sun and cloud kind of day. And then as we head overnight, this is when a few showers are expected to begin. Waking up Thursday morning, yeah, bring the umbrella with you as you're heading out. It's not going to be a washout by any means. In fact, a lot of the day is going to be dry, but that chance of showers will be with us throughout. And then on the backside of that low, slightly cooler air and maybe a few flurries sneaking in. But ahead of that, yeah, the rain is what we're focusing on. Anywhere from 5 to 10 millimeters is what we're expecting this time as that system rolls in, but some areas are going to see even less than 5. 7-day forecast looks like this. So we go from 15 degrees on Wednesday to about 13 for the high on Thursday. So not much of a cool down until the nighttime hours. Cold front slices through. -5 is our forecast overnight low, which is why some areas could see a few light flurries. Friday into sunshine, daytime high 9 degrees. The temperature roller coaster brings us some cooler conditions into the weekend. Look at that overnight low Saturday and into Sunday, -9. A few showers or flurries look to be in the forecast by about the time we reach next Monday. That's your look at the weather for now. Nathan, sending things over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Well, spring flooding is wreaking havoc across parts of Quebec as some schools were closed and hundreds were forced from their homes. CTV Geneviève Beauchemin shows us how people are coping in Drummondville.
Massive chunks of ice jammed up several rivers in Quebec, forcing waterways to breach their banks. Tonight, Drummondville is on high alert. Eric Aprou watched the water rise in a flash. The pressure pushed in a door and filled her garage and basement with dirty sludge. She says she feared she would be trapped. Firefighters had to rescue her by boat from her home. 300 homes and businesses were evacuated in Drummondville. This while an hour away, Nicolette, a Coast Guard hovercraft, broke up the ice cover on the river. The aim was to force floodwaters to retreat. The water filtration plant was submerged and shut down. We declared a state of emergency, says Mayor Geneviève Dubois. We distributed drinking water to long-term care homes and daycares. In Beauceville, an hour out of Quebec City, several roads and schools were closed, homes evacuated.
We've taken care of about 25 people here that needed the support, direct support from us last night. And there's probably 75 people that were in the city that needed to go see friends and evacuate somewhere else.
Spring is still days away, but the annual thaw got underway fast. Temperatures shot up to 19 degrees in Beauceville Sunday, and several other regions of Quebec beat record high temperatures. Mix that with all the water we got and the snow that accumulated all winter long, and this is the result. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Drummondville, Quebec.
2 NASA astronauts are finally on their way back home 9 months after arriving at the International Space Station.
And undocking confirmed, Freedom is free of its moorings.
Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore left the orbiting lab in a SpaceX capsule early this morning. They were only supposed to be at the ISS for about a week, but the Boeing Starliner they arrived on was deemed unsafe for the journey back to Earth. The capsule is due to return this evening off the Florida coast.
A texting scam has cost a Trenton woman thousands of dollars. CTV's Pat Foran will have all the details after the break.
Spring breakers are flocking to Victoria, BC as a new travel trend takes shape.
In the face of U.S. tariffs and annexation threats, it appears Canadians aren't just getting their elbows up, they're putting their feet up too. CTV's Yvonne Raymond explains.
I got a next text and it says, "Can you help me out?"
A woman we'll call Sue from Trenton asked us not to identify her as she is embarrassed after being caught in a texting scam. She got a text that said, "Hi, Mom, I can't call with this number. It's for text and data only." He said he switched providers and asked, "Could you make the e-transfer for me? I will pay you back in 2 days."
Being a mother, you think you're doing something right, but not even thinking about it.
Sue says her son was having car trouble, so she thought he needed money for repairs. She transferred just over $2,900 and then another $2,800. After sending over $5,700, she found out the person wasn't her son and she had been scammed.
And that's when I started to have all these feelings. I just felt so violated and everything else because I'm like, I don't know who this money's gone to.
Smishing is simply text-based fraud that impersonates someone that they think they know.
Claudio Popa says anytime you get a text message from someone claiming they need money in a hurry, that should be a huge red flag.
Anytime you receive an urgent message, you should take a step back, take a moment, think about it. Don't ever reply right away. There's nothing that's that urgent.
And if the person claiming to be a family member says not to tell anyone or call or message other family members, you should reach out to confirm they are who they say they are.
As soon as you have a suspicion that whoever you're receiving an email from is not the right person, contact them out of band, as we say. So pick up the phone, call them. If you need to, email them.
As for Sue, she is heartbroken to lose almost $6,000 and says she wanted to share her story to warn others.
I never thought I could find myself in this position today.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
And that was Pat Foran reporting on the latest scam story to watch out for. Here is Yvonne Raymond with that story of Canadians flocking to Victoria, BC.
Victoria's Inner Harbor bustles with visitors on day one of spring break.
What are you doing here?
Girls trip. And this year, trends appear changed.
We wanted to travel somewhere in Canada this year, and we had come to Victoria a couple of times before 2018 and had lots of fun. So we wanted to visit again since it had been so long.
We're going to go to the museum, the bug museum.
Were there any considerations to go to the U.S.?
No, not for a second.
The sentiment is widespread amid a trade war. In February, the number of Canadians crossing the border was down 20% year over year.
I feel very patriotic when I'm here. All the Canadian flags and the Parliament buildings and stuff, it's awesome.
I've been trying to buy as much Canadian as I can.
I think it's good to keep tourism here and kind of boost the economy a bit too, because with tariffs, they're trying to increase their GDP.
The Greater Victoria Hotel Association is noticing an uptick in bookings, not just from Canadians, Americans too.
The dollar is certainly helping us attract Americans, particularly from our close neighboring states, where we're, as always, for decades and centuries, we're happy to have them visit.
Buskers love Uncle Sam at $1.40 plus to the Canadian dollar.
Hotel reps say the outlook adds to a subtle shift in March travel.
We've seen the last couple of years, particularly since COVID, that we get more spring break travel from regional markets who come do something different and visit Victoria.
Pre-bookings are way up compared to last year.
Sightseeing operator Prince of Wales joins the industry, keen to see how the numbers unfold.
We love showing the locals their backyard and showing them the wonder of Wales.
Its big boats launch March 28th. Yvonne Raymond, CTV News, Victoria.
All right, Premier Ford is speaking to reporters at Queen's Park right now. Let's listen in live.
Also agreed. We're going to carry these conversations on next week. As Secretary Lutnick told us, he's not invading Canada and all the other nonsense that's been going on. He wants to boost up Canada. It's in their best interest. After, if I can put it bluntly, after they fill their plate. But I went on to mention that you can't flick on a switch and create a car plant overnight. You can't switch on a flick. A flick of the lights and open up a aluminum plant. So I think they're coming to realize how important the supply chain is. Supply chain is critical. I also mentioned to them any car part that has a little streak of aluminum or steel that goes back and forth up to 8 times, the person in Texas that's buying a pickup truck is now going to be paying over $20,000 more for a pickup truck. And I know Americans, when they have to pay more and they see inflation happening and they see some plants close, well, they're going to have a very, very strong voice. We look forward to continuing these talks, and we aren't looking forward to April the 2nd, but we will retaliate, dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff. It is going to hurt the Americans. It is going to hurt us. But we can't roll over. We have to make sure we stay strong, we stay united as a country, and we have to continue on fighting. And like I've said many times, I'll fight like I've never fought before for Ontario and Canada as a whole. We have a great team of premiers, and we're going to continue staying focused. What can we do here in Canada? As I've mentioned to the Prime Minister, that we need to build big federal infrastructure projects, no matter if it's rail lines or it's pipelines or any big infrastructure project to keep people busy right across the country. And this is the time to do it. Let's get rid of, the 20 years it takes to get a permit for critical minerals, be it the Ring of Fire. And I've always said our Ring of Fire is equal to Alberta's oil. It'll make us stronger. The whole world wants our critical minerals. Our neighbors to the south want our critical minerals. But we can't be taking 20 years. We want to work with First Nations communities as we have been, no matter if it's Arrowland or Webequie or Martin Falls that are all gung-ho. And I've mentioned to the federal government as well, we need you part of that to build these big infrastructure projects. So we're going to continue working with the federal government. And I've always said, and I'll continue saying this, I don't care about political stripes. I don't care if it's a purple, green, orange, red, blue party. I'm going to work with the federal government in the best interest of Ontarians.
What specifically did they tell you about this global tariff, sir?
Yeah, they're going right across the board. And I just want to qualify, and thank you for that, Richard. I want to qualify this. As we all know, here are the goalposts today with them. The goalposts could change tomorrow. It could change April the 2nd. What we understand, there's 5 areas that they're kind of focusing on. Is lumber, is steel, it's aluminum, it's tech as well, and lumber. So those are roughly the 5 that they talk about. You hear a lot about dairy but the thing is, they don't understand. They haven't even hit the quota from the last agreement. So there hasn't been a tariff because they haven't met their quota. It was anything over our quota, they get tariffed on.
But they're saying August for every country. That's what they told you.
Yeah, they're April 2nd globally. They're going to put tariffs right across the board. And when it comes to Canada, they need to read a page out of Ronald Reagan's book. Protectionism never works, never has worked in the history of this world. We need to have a free and fair trade deal with our closest allies, and they still are our closest allies. So we look forward to working through this, and we want to be in the tier 1 level, per se, of countries that they turn to when they realize they can't produce the aluminum they need, or they can't produce the high-grade nickel and other critical minerals and autos.
All right, we're listening to
so on and so
Premier
forth.
Doug Ford speaking at Queen's Park for the first time this week. He talked about his meeting in Washington with U.S. officials. He says the industries are intertwined. He's not looking forward to April 2nd when more U.S. tariffs begin, but he says we will retaliate. He also says he did speak with Mark Carney. He's working and willing to work with him. And he says that we need big infrastructure projects to cope. And bottom line, he says conversations will continue next week with Washington. Of course, we'll keep on following this story. We'll give you a recap online at ctvnewstoronto.ca. And, of course, on our newscast tonight, it's 5 and 6. More news after the break. Stay with us.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has pledged to take the carbon tax fight to the next level should he be elected Prime Minister one day. CTV's Rachel Aiello has details on what he wants to scrap next.
At a steel plant in eastern Ontario, today, Pierre Poilievre took his pledge to scrap the consumer carbon tax a step further.
A common sense, Canada First Conservative government will repeal the entire carbon tax, including the federal backstop that requires provinces impose industrial taxes.
The Conservative leader said he would remove the price on big emitters to help industries being hit by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs.
I once again say to Donald Trump, why would you go after these people?
This policy pledge comes after Mark Carney, in his first act as Prime Minister, signed a directive on Friday ending the consumer carbon tax through regulations, while upholding the industrial portion.
It's my honor, on behalf of my colleagues, to sign this order.
That move sparked heated debate over the weekend, with some questioning the process, noting the carbon pricing law has not been repealed in Parliament. Today, Carney was asked if he still thinks keeping a tax on industrial polluters is viable amid Trump's threats.
We have to be able to connect the dots, something that the opposition is totally incapable of doing. Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the European Union? Guess what one of the requirements will be to diversify trade to emerging Asia? Is to have a form of price on carbon.
Only 4 provinces and territories apply the federal industrial carbon price. The rest operate their own carbon pricing systems. While Poilievre says he'd expand clean technology tax credits instead, analysis from the Canadian Climate Institute suggests Canada's industrial carbon pricing, if maintained, would do more than any other policy to cut emissions over the next 5 years.
If you're going to eliminate the industrial carbon price, then we are going to have a major hole in our climate policy.
Asked what climate targets a Conservative government would commit to, Poilievre was non-committal, saying he would treat reducing emissions as a global problem. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, just west of Hawkesbury, Ontario.
There's new hope and a new approach to treating a form of leukemia.
It involves engineering immune cells. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan has more on the research and the potential impact on patients.
Brian Burton was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia last fall.
I'm going through, take 2 pills in the morning, and this afternoon, actually, I go for my needles in my stomach. 2 needles in my stomach.
There are treatments, but Dr. Mike Hart-Matthias says very often combinations of treatment are needed.
AML, as we call it, arises from the blood-making system, and it can affect young children generally and older adults.
AML is the second most common form of childhood leukemia, and in older adults it affects about 1 in 3 leukemia patients.
They can come in with bleeding problems, breathing issues, serious infections requiring admission to the hospital and ICU.
But Hart-Matthias and scientists at the Sunnybrook Research Institute are pioneering a new approach to treating AML by engineering immune cells to target genes specifically found in this type of leukemia.
Instead of killing them by conventional means, kill them by interfering with these specific fusion genes or these bad players that lead to the development of the leukemia.
Our hope is to be able to develop new cell therapies that will allow us to directly treat the leukemias without damaging any of the normal cells that a patient has, and to have effective ability to have a personalized approach.
Burton knows this type of work takes time, but whether or not it helps him directly, it gives him hope.
Our 50th anniversary is coming up next summer, and my wife is already planning a trip for us out east so that we can have the whole family together and celebrate it.
And that hope helps him face each new day. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
And a quick live shot out at the Toronto Island this hour before we go to break. A little bit of cloud cover out there as we climb toward double digits. You're watching CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
All right, spring is just a couple days away. I do wonder in the next couple weeks, are we going to get another blast of winter?
Oh, don't say that.
Okay, fine.
I am enjoying driving with the windows open personally. I put away the snow pants. I hope I don't jinx it.
Okay, I'll say it. We almost always get a little bit of snow, additional snow in March and even April, but we'll take this nice weather while we have it. Maybe nothing too measurable. All right, I'm not going to go ahead and make any short-term predictions. What I can tell you is that we have a beautiful day today. We have a lovely day tomorrow as well. First, here's your overnight lows and a reminder that this is maple syrup season. So I just want to remind you of the fact that we actually need overnight lows to slip below freezing at times right now. Not going to happen tonight. It's going to be mild tonight. It's going to be very mild tomorrow. Forecast daytime high 15 degrees. And then we get into some spring showers for Thursday. Nathan and Natalie.
Right. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching. I'm Natalie Johnson.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.